My teacher, Master Kai Oxley, often said, "The great lesson of the I Ching is that sooner or later, everything changes into its opposite. All of the oracle's advice comes down to how to hasten the reversal of misfortune and delay the reversal of good fortune." Now, the meaning of this lesson has deepened for me over the years. When he said sooner or later, he was pointing to the utter uncertainty about the timing of change. Some things seem monolithic and incapable of collapse, yet they fall, seemingly overnight and without any of the warning signs one might have expected. This is because the hidden seeds of change grow in the invisible and cannot be perceived by the modern mind. Other things seem fragile, accidental, fleeting, so of the moment that they might burst like a bubble at the slightest breeze. Yet so of the moment are they, that they become landmarks on the landscape of the soul, withstanding time and opposition for generations. This is because the hidden seeds of change are dormant within the invisible, giving rise to a protracted continuity that cannot be perceived by the modern mind. When he said everything changes into its opposite, he was pointing at the cyclic nature of change, where the opposites are actually complements of one another, in the sense that winter is not exactly the opposite of summer, but its complement, or harvesting is not so much the opposite of sowing as it is its complement. The basis of this teaching can be seen in the diagram here, which demonstrates the relativity or complementarity of the primordial creative duality of yin and yang. It shows that the yin side of a mountain changes into the yang side in the course of a day, and likewise the yang side of a mountain reverses to become the yin side as the morning gives way to afternoon. The point here is that yin and yang are constantly in flux, and that the person who fixates on one of their objects, such as the side of a mountain, will continue to identify with one half of the duality long after it has reversed polarity. Similarly, everyone has a feminine yin half and a masculine yang half. Those who fixate on the half corresponding to their gender, for instance, deny themselves the full gamut of potential development and fulfillment that is their birthright. Those who treat others according to their gender identity likewise fixate on the apparent half of their being, depriving themselves of knowing the full scope of the other's real self. Beyond these simplistic examples, there is also the obvious fact that every reasonably well-balanced individual is constantly switching between masculine and feminine ways of responding to events around them. Again, the point is, whether internally or externally, fixating attention on one half of the creative duality means identifying with something that will inevitably change into its other half. When Master Kai said, "All of the oracle's advice comes down to how to hasten the reversal of misfortune and delay the reversal of good fortune," he was referring to the transition points between reversals. These are called incipiencies, the first stirrings of seeds deep within the invisible ground of being. There is no way to anticipate or participate in the process of inevitable reversals without being able to sense the hidden developments still a long way from emerging into full view. This diagram depicts a naturalistic view of these transition points and their place in human life. Although this model uses the seasons to represent the transition points, it is not, of course, confining its symbology to the yearly cycle. The real activity here occurs on the level of generative energy, which follows a cycle of initiating, waxing, completing, and waning dynamics. Using the symbology of the I Ching, the chart illustrates the basic premise: the transition points occur when beneficial energy is not tempered and so allowed to develop into its extreme form. In the case of this inner compass, the turning points occur at the 9 in summer and the 6 in the winter. In the case of summer, the change is initiated by the extreme of excess light, and in the case of winter, by the extreme of excess dark. There are also times of stability, in other words, marked here by the 7 in spring and the 8 in autumn. Diviners envelop themselves in the presence of the oracle in order to recognize the points on the inner compass and actively work with the reversals, helping lengthen times of good fortune and shorten times of misfortune. There are other forms of divination than the I Ching, of course, and other ways to visualize incipiencies, but none I know of that are either so well developed conceptually or so fully integrated with nature. Beginning with this schema within the realm of life, diviners train to sensitize themselves to the corresponding transition points within the subtler realms. There is a deeper esoteric meaning to sensitizing oneself to incipiencies, however. Every diviner and shaman and serious spiritual practitioner I have ever met has worked hard to attain an unmistakable peace of mind. They have all been reverential individuals with a calm personality that clearly reflected a calm interior. When they spoke, it was clear that they were creating those words on the spot and not falling back on habit or on convention. Their words reflected, embodied the peace they felt in their intimacy with life and soul and mind, an intimacy based on first-hand experience. For diviners, there is a long tradition of quieting the habit mind. This is summed up in the many versions of the statement. With time, the diviner's mind comes to reflect the mind of the oracle. We base this formula on first-hand experience of the oracle, which exists in the oneness of time, the timeless expanse of a single seamless moment. It is a moment of utter quiescence, in which the oracle's awareness extends in all directions at once. When diviners inquire of the oracle, that act moves the oracle to bring its awareness to bear on the time and place in question. This transition from quiescence to response corresponds to the formation of a thought in the mind of the diviner. It corresponds to the transition from being to thinking in the mind of a diviner. And this transition point marks an inner incipiency. The untrained mind struggles with compulsive memories, habit emotions, and intrusive thoughts, all of which drag the practitioner around like a horse dragging someone with his foot caught in the stirrup. The trained mind, however, reverts constantly to quiescence, wherein it is infinitely simpler to recognize incipient thoughts before they ever form. At first, it is like seeing a stranger on your front porch and refusing them entry. Then it is like seeing the stranger at your gate and refusing them entry. Then it is like seeing the stranger turning the corner and coming up your street and refusing them entry. And then it is like seeing the stranger at the edge of town and refusing them entry. First, we quiet the habit mind of the personality, then we apply the same technique to the yoked souls of the diviner. In this way, our minds revert constantly to being, moving into thinking only as a natural and spontaneous response to circumstances. After all, my teacher, Robert Sharp, used to observe Riley, a little self-control never hurt anybody. Then he would proceed to enumerate the consequences of the untrained mind. There is no awakening without awe. There is no awe without gratitude. There is no gratitude without reverence. There is no reverence without spirituality. There is no spirituality without self-realization. There is no self-realization without self-discipline. What does this awakened mind look like? Well, it is often described as the valley spirit, a vast, empty, quiet space between peaks that responds to every sound with a perfect, spontaneous, and unpremeditated, mirror-like echo.